Look up the word crazy in the dictionary and you might just find an asterisk beside the definition that says, listen to the Subiquitous podcast featuring Sue Duffield and you'll find out what crazy means. Sue's travelogue journey of unfiltered stories, impossible miracles, and faith-filled fun will be revisited right here. So buckle up and let's get going with this humorous travelogue of an unfiltered saint, Subiquitous.
While many people believe being productive is the same as being busy, the reality is that the two are so different. Productive people tend to think that they don't waste time doing just one task. A productive person prioritizes the things that need to be done, which means that they have less work to do each day and have a greater sense of achievement at the end of the day. Busy people are more concerned with the difference between detail A and B, so it's more important to pick one and walk. On the other hand, productive people focus on being effective and efficient, and they know how to manage and plan their time to prioritize the most important of tasks. Now, I'm setting you up for something here. The busy person spends all their time researching, finding out possibilities, making lists and trying to perfect the things before they even get started. And as a result, busy people fill their diaries with things that occupy them but change nothing in their lives. They know that too many yes-sayers are the wrong things, even when it's small, and it can lead them down the wrong path. The busy person starts a blog, let's say, and takes up 3 times as much time and effort as the productive person and complains they don't have enough time to get things done. You can't believe my emails sometimes when people ask me, Sue, how are you able to juggle all the things you do? Well, in this way, you can focus, and this is what I do, on one topic and jump back and forth throughout the day. You could say that this kind of work or project consumes your time and energy and is less interesting than turning your attention to your major projects or initiatives and goals. It's easy to become too preoccupied with oneself, but doing such things can make all the difference in the results you're trying to achieve. I don't need a badge of honor to show that I'm busy, no matter how many things I try to do in a day. In fact, busy people think it's the right way to do. In fact, more work on my plate, I'm better. They add as many tasks to their to-do list as possible and move most of their tasks on if they don't finish them to the next day. They tend to take all or nothing, that approach, when it comes to planning and how they'll work each day to achieve the most important things. And their actions are driven by a conscious decision to achieve a certain result, while busy people always prepare for that result. Productive people know that they don't need 40 tasks on their to-do list. Busy people try to put everything on their seemingly endless to-do list, taking on projects and making promises that they can't keep. They may have good intentions, but we can't complain about someone wanting to help someone else at the end of the day. And there's this term, businessmanship. It's fueled by perfectionism, while productivity is fueled by intent. And one of the most important steps in your transformation from becoming a busy person to a productive person is to let go of your perfectionism. Being busy means working hard, but being productive also means working hard. And when you run out of time, ask yourself, what are my priorities? And if you can only do 15 to 20 things in one day, you have to reassess your priorities. Being productive means not only doing most things, but also doing the right things. And productive is always the focus. In fact, productivity focuses on fulfilling the most important task with the greatest influence. It's checkpoints off the to-do list to go home satisfied and have no small sense of achievement. So there's the mission of productive work that's trying to reach the crucial milestone needed to achieve a goal. The interesting thing is that you can be very busy for a whole day and still feel that you have not been productive. In fact, busy people check their emails all day long and are interrupted when their phone buzzes. Urgent people pick up the phone, but we don't answer every single email in our inbox. Busy people tend to start their day by checking their emails, returning home, and having the rest of the day dictated to them by the state they're in. Productive people don't focus on responding to emails and have systems in place to help them process their emails. So my question to you today is, are you busy or are you productive? Or like the title, I'm too busy for that. What category do you fall into? Galatians 5:22-23 says, "The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law." Now, the last phrase really caught my attention. Against such things there is no law. Could you imagine a world where there are no laws? Somebody said to me the other day, I think we live in one right now. Well, anyway, if each and everything was legal, no restrictions, no boundaries, no restraints. I mean, you could drive up and down, let's just say, Main Street at any section, and that would be great. Forget the stop signs, forget the stoplight, just go through it. That would be wonderful to have that freedom, right? The next thing you know, you're going to the body shop with your car, let alone putting yourself in ICU. Paul is not saying that all things are lawful. In fact, we must take that phrase, against such things there is no law, in the context in which it was intended. Against love, against joy, against peace, against patience, against kindness, against goodness, against faithfulness, against gentleness, against self-control, there is no law, no restrictions, no boundaries, no restraints. And I can do as much of them as I please. No one has passed a law saying that I can't do those things. In fact, the more I do, the better for me and for you. In 1 Corinthians, Paul says this, all things are lawful, but not all things are profitable, like being in that intersection and running that red light. All things are lawful, but not all things edify. 1 Corinthians 10:23. I like the way the Bible in basic English puts it. It says, we are free to do all things, but there are things which is not wise to do. We are free to do all things, but not all things are for the common good. And I know we live in a world right now full of noise. There's so much movement, so many forces pulling at us. It becomes so easy to get lost in everything trying to gain our attention. And in these chaotic moments, God may be calling you to pause and be still. Psalm 46:10 and 11 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Isn't it incredible how some Christians can go through the worst suffering and pain, but still find joy? They can do this because they are still, S-T-I-L-L. They put all of their concerns into God's hands. And God may be trying to reach you right now. Instead of tuning into the noise of your worries, frustrations, and concerns, listen to the voice of God. And here are 5 signs that I believe God is telling all of us to stop and to pause and to evaluate our busyness or our productiveness. Number 1, you're frustrated. That is an alert. Your very frustration may be God telling you it's time to stop and listen to Him. Frustration generally shows up when we've fallen off course with God. It may be coming up when something personal has happened or when we feel like we've been wronged in some way. The book of Ecclesiastes tells us over and over again that continuous anxiety will only end in frustration. It's God who gives us exactly what you need. And the Bible reminds us the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. That's Psalm 34:18. Take a little breath here. God loves you so much that He wants to be close to you even in your frustration. There is no battle that we can take on physically or mentally or emotionally or spiritually that we can handle without God interceding. Pause and trust. whatever he may be trying to tell you amidst your busyness. Number 2, spiritual fatigue. Oh, yeah. If you're feeling spiritually fatigued, God may be telling you to pause. Sometimes we're so caught up in the cycle of life that it impacts both our physical and spiritual well-being. Do you notice yourself more sluggish and tired than usual? This may be the result of ongoing spiritual battles and separation from God. This may also be caused by spiritual fatigue. It may not just be your body that's exhausted. It may also be your soul. This may also be a sign that you have become separated from God and you lost yourself somewhere along the way. When you begin to feel spiritual fatigue, it's really, really important that you reconnect with God. Call on God and ask Him where He wants you to be led. And number 3, this is a biggie, hectic schedule. Another big sign that God is telling you to pause is when your schedule is incredibly hectic. We all go through busy seasons in our lives. You feel like you don't have time for yourself, let alone what God is trying to tell you. But Jesus urges us, and this is what He says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That's Matthew 11:28. And if it seems like your life is too busy for God, you should be sure that God is rooted in your day-to-day life. Make sure of that. You can never be too busy for God when He is embedded in every single thing you do. When you feel incredibly overwhelmed, you can know that God is right there calling you to slow down and ground you. I'm preaching to the choir. Number 4, you're chronically anxious. You know, when you are chronically anxious, you will find yourself dreading getting up every day. Dread can show up in different kinds of ways, and it feels like a dead weight, a burden. It can take over your life and make it difficult for you to make the moves you need to move forward. This is a biggie, and God is telling you to be still. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave or forsake you." And there are several times in the Bible where God told people to write down what was most important to them. And He told them to write these things on tablets, doorposts, stones, and even on their hearts. One Bible character God told to do this very thing is David. And as David paused and wrote these things down, he started to see how big God really was. Psalm 54:6 and 7 is a great example. "I will give thanks to your name, O Lord, for it is good. For He has delivered me from every trouble, and my eye looked in triumph on my enemies." If you're chronically anxious and experiencing dread, write out your worries and then write out why those fears are irrational. You will realize that the things that seem so big are really small on paper as you do this. And number 5, and this one is a killer. If you are so busy, overwhelmed, number 5, no longer worshiping God. One of the toughest challenges we face on our spiritual journey is truly trusting God's will in all circumstances. And this can get even more difficult when our faith is tested. A big sign God is telling you to pause is when you feel like you're pulled away from worship. Worship is one of the greatest ways we connect with God. So when we are no longer energized by worship, God is trying to tell us something. And this may be the result of a spiritual battle taking place in our lives. Psalm 107:28-29 says, "Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and He brought them out of their distress. And He stills the storm to whispers, and waves of the sea were hushed." God wants you to pause and cry out to Him in your trouble. It can be so difficult trying to find the space to pause. I know. But while being still is difficult, it is one of the only ways we can truly connect with God in order to pause. We have to be able to hear God's voice and the messages He's trying to send us. You may have trouble hearing his voice directly, but if you're aware of the signs, you may be able to figure out why and what he is trying to say to you. Take a pause and breathe. One thing is for sure. I get asked all the time, Sue, aren't you just too busy? And to that I respond, maybe. But the gauge is always if I'm too busy doing what I love to do, and if I fall into any one of those 5 categories that I just talked about, it is time to take a good look at my busyness and proactiveness. I do take time to reflect. I do take time to rejuvenate and even resuscitate on occasion, but I'm always aware that if I'm doing way too much, my body and my Lord will always tell me the truth. The Ubiquitous Podcast is just one way we can slow this busy person down, because you know what? It forces me to sit a spell and talk to you. I know, that's funny. I hope to keep in constant contact with you. You're our friends, our family. And I can't begin to thank you for keeping this ministry thriving and reaching more and more people for Christ all the time. Get on SueDuffield.com to stay in touch, and also send an email to radiosue@me.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's really okay to be busy, but better yet, be productive and proactive with your busyness to share Jesus with a shallow and hopeless world. They need you. And for anything else, well, I'm too busy for all of that. We'll see you next time.